It's week 3 of the Laundry Basket Quilt Summer Mystery Quilt, and I am so excited to get started this week because we're going to use a technique that I've never used before. As always, if you want to follow along, I'm going to include a link to this week's mystery quilt clue in my description. Edita Sitar of Laundry Basket Quilts is generously providing this pattern for free on her blog. Go check it out. It is so worth it. And while you're there, you might want to check out some of her other patterns because she's just so talented. Everything she does is just beautiful. I already have my fabric picked out for this week. I have one dark, one medium, one light, and a background color. But fun fact, I actually started with this fabric in mind because I've been wanting to use these cute little turtles. So I started with this fabric and I chose the light, the background, and the dark here. And this one wasn't involved at all. But I realized that these pieces are going to end up being 1 inch square. So that means that there's going to be points in the quilt where I'm going to get little squares like this where with barely any of that teal background fabric, the background color that I want, and just the turtle. So it could be a pink one or a polka dot one or an orange one, and I decided that's just going to throw off my gradient, my shading way too much. So I wanted to pick something that didn't have so many colors in it. And that's how I landed on this teacup fabric here, or teapot fabric, because the teacups are pretty big, but even if you get mostly a teapot in a 1 inch space, there's still a ton of that background color that I'm looking for. So that works out pretty well. So I just substituted the teapots instead of the turtles. Poor turtles. If you want a refresher on how to cut straight strips for these strip sets, make sure and go back to my week 1 video. I talk about cutting straight strips and I also talk about putting the panels together. Okay, quick summary before I get started. These 3 fabrics here are cut from yardage. So I have 1 with the fabric strip for the dark and the background. I have 2 with the fabric strips for this color here. And these strips are cut from a fat quarter. So what I have is 4 strips that are half the width of fabric. So I'm going to cut these in half along that fold line, these top 3 fabrics along the fold line, and then I'm going to make 2 strip set panels. The order of our panels goes dark, medium, light, background, light, medium. I'm going to assemble this like our previous strip set panels, and then I get to do something new and exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking, but fun. My strip sets are all done. No sewing montage because I am too excited to move on to this fabric tube thing. I'm going to sew the bottom edge of the panel to the top edge of the panel. It feels so wrong. But before I sew that, I did realize something. Before we sew the tube, we already have the first sequence here. Dark, medium, light, background, light, medium. So instead of doing the tube and then cutting out this sequence, I'm going to cut it out first, and then I'll do my tubes and then cut out the other 2 sequences. So for each block, I need 2 of this one. There's 4 blocks. That means I need a total of 8. So I'm going to cut those real quick. I didn't press these, just like Edita said, and it feels so wrong to be doing this with an unpressed strip set. I'm hoping this doesn't come back to haunt me later. So there's my straight edge. Now I gotta cut 8 strip sets. Okay, I have 8 of these first units, so now I can go ahead and make those tubes. So I'll have a little one and then a much longer one. My big tube and my mini tube are done, so now I just need to cut 16 more of those segments. And this feels so wrong. This feels really weird. I'm going to reestablish my straight edge here, and then I'm going to start cutting. I'm getting down to my selvages, and I'm wondering if I'm going to be able to get one more section out. I made it. So I have 8 of my unit 1s that I cut before I did the tubes, and then I have 2 groups of 8 little tubey units. So now it is time to untube them, if you will. So I'm going to refer to this picture a lot. So this is unit 1. So I'm going to be working on unit 2 here, which starts with the medium, dark, medium, medium. So inside the tube, I'm going to, this feels so weird. I'm going to start with the color that I know goes on top, and so that makes this one the bottom one, and Aditya says you just pull from both sides, and then I guess you remove the string or the thread. Oh, okay, that was easier than I thought. Okay, so my first unit 2. Then for my unit 3, I'm going to want to, let's see, I'm going to have medium, medium, dark with my background on the bottom. Okay, that looks right to me. Let's see. I'm going to pull. I'm going to try to pull. Nope. Okay. So this takes some practice. Try again. Okay, there we go. Medium, medium, dark, medium, medium, light. Okay, so that is unit 3. Just got to do that 14 more times. I've got to say, that is not super fun to do. The tube was fun, this is not. Now it's time to give these little units a much needed press. They are a mess. Instead of taking the units to the board like this in sequence, I can just refer back to this picture here. I can group all of my unit 1s together, all my unit 2s together, all my unit 3s together, and then I can press them all of the unit 1s one way. So I think I'm going to just press them from the dark down, and so my unit 1 over here will look very similar but opposite. And so if this one's going down, this one needs to go up, and then the mirror image for this one, and so on, so that they will match up. I can nest all of those seams perfectly. So I'm just going to group my 1s together, press them all, group my 2, press them all the same way, and so on, and I think that'll work out really well. While I'm pressing these strips, I'm going to provide just a little bit of tension as I go. I'm going to be careful not to stretch. I just don't want any of my fabric to fold down into the seam. So, and if you want to be extra careful, you can measure this as you go. Pretty darn close. That is close enough for me. I'm not going to do that for every strip. So again, I'm going to just provide just a tiny bit of tension, just so that those seams don't have any extra fabric folded over. It's time to start putting this together. So I have my unit 1, unit 2, unit 3, and I'm going to need 2 of each of them for each block. First half, and then we're going to reverse it for the second half. So I'm going to take these over to my machine. I'm going to nest my seams as I go, and I'm going to get this block done. But you know what? I am hot and I am tired, so let's go ahead and skip to the finished block. Week 3 is done. I think if I were to do this block again, I would just have a little bit more contrast between the darkest dark and this color right next to it. Like if I had flipped these colors here, I think that would have been really great. Or if I just had lightened up or chosen a lighter color here, that would be much better. But all in all, I think it finished well and it's going to look great in the quilt. I had the same problem with my mom's block. These two colors here, they just don't have enough contrast between them. I wish that this was just a hair darker, because as it is, they're just sort of blending together. It's just missing that extra spark, a little oomph. And if I have enough fabric left over, I'm going to redo this one. Probably with this fabric here. So I think I would replace this fabric with this fabric. It's just a little bit darker. It would just have that little bit extra contrast. Last week I got a question about how I make these quilt mock-ups, so here is a very, very pared down explanation. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer them. For this process, I actually use 2 apps on my iPad, and the first one is called Snapseed. I use this to edit my photo in several ways, but the most important step is in the Perspective tab. I use this function to make sure that my block is square, because depending on your camera angle, you can get a lot of distortion, but you want your block to be square for the next step. After I've edited my photo, I use a program called Affinity Designer, a vector-based app similar to Adobe Illustrator. Instead of a subscription, it's a one-time purchase, and it's available for desktop and tablet. I set up my quilt grid at the beginning of the summer mystery quilt, so now I just need to insert my photo, I shrink it down to the right size, and then I nest it inside the corresponding square. So that's just the most pared back explanation there. There's a lot to learn inside of Affinity Designer. It can be really complex or it can be really simple. There is a learning curve, but luckily there's tons of tutorials on YouTube, so if you're interested, check it out.